It seems to me like everyone these days wants to be an entrepreneur, but knowing how and where to get started still remains relatively unclear. Like, what should you sell? Who should you sell it to? Where should you be selling it? These are all things that can be incredibly confusing, right? And so I already have a number of videos on my YouTube channel which walk you through the basic steps of getting started as an entrepreneur. For example, I have this video right here, which walks you step by step through the practical action steps that you need to take in order to start a business in Canada. And then I also have this video right here, which talks about the considerations that you should be making before you decide whether or not entrepreneurship is going to be the path for you. Now, in this video today, what I want to get into is the conversation around the nitty-gritty specifics about what you actually have to do if you want to start a business from zilch, from zero, with no experience and no idea where to start. Because again, I think entrepreneurship has become sort of this it topic that everyone is talking about, but there's still a lot of confusion when it comes to generating a business idea and understanding where and how to get started. And so just because we're interested in entrepreneurship, there are still a lot of barriers that exist that enable us, or prevent us rather, from being able to go ahead and to get started. So what's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name's Danielle. In 2018, I decided to quit my full-time corporate job and start a yoga studio with no experience as an entrepreneur. And I now have the pleasure of spending my days teaching other Canadians how to start and grow their own small businesses. So if you want to learn how to start your own business from the bottom up, you are in the right place. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Okay, so to start things off, I want to introduce you to the tried and true trifecta. That's not actually what it's called. That's just what I'm calling it right now. But this is a concept that I teach to all of my one-on-one clients. I talk about it in a lot of my TikTok videos, and I also mention it pretty much every day on TikTok Live. You see, the number one question that I get from people who want to start a business but haven't quite started or aren't quite sure where to start is, Danielle, how do I know what to sell? Does this question sound familiar? Because same. I've asked myself that question a lot over the course of the last few years. Maybe it's because you have a lot of interest, maybe it's because you have a lot of different ideas, or maybe it's because of neither of those. You literally just don't know where to start. You're thinking, I want to have a business, but I have no idea what that business should be. Either way, whatever you're thinking, it's totally fine. We're going to figure out together what it is you should be selling by using my favorite and very simple technique. This will be the number one step you need to take in being able to actually start your own business. It's loosely based on the concept of ikigai, the Japanese concept of your reason for being. But I actually took this concept from the book, The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau. This is hands down my number one favorite book, especially if you are an aspiring entrepreneur or you're new to entrepreneurship. If you have not read this book before, you definitely should, and I will link it down in the description for you to check it out. So just to be clear, I take no credit for this concept. It's just a tool that I've used in my own business. I have used it in the businesses of my clients, and I've seen many people have lots of success using this technique. And so essentially, here's how it works. If you are someone who wants to start a business and you aren't sure where to start, I want you to begin by making 3 lists. So we want to start to think about almost sort of a Venn diagram type thing. So you have those 3 circles and you're figuring out where they overlap. And those 3 categories are going to be the things that you are interested in. So topics or areas of interest that you could find yourself spending and investing a lot of time in. Because obviously, when we start a business, we have to be interested in the business idea and the thing that we're doing or selling. Otherwise, it's going to run its course. We're going to get burned out and we're not going to want to do it anymore. So I want you to make a list of all of the things that you are interested in. Well, maybe not all of the things you're interested in, because that could take a long time, but all of the things that you are interested in pursuing from a business perspective. From there, I also want you to consider the areas in which you have skill or the areas in which you would be able to acquire that skill. So one example I often give is becoming a cookie decorator. So I know how to bake cookies. I have that skill, but I don't necessarily have the skill to be able to decorate them nicely. However, I know that here on YouTube, there are hours of tutorials teaching you how to decorate cookies. Therefore, if I wanted to open a cookie decorating business, it's something I'm interested in, and I would have the ability to acquire the skill and hopefully become good enough at it that I could pursue it as a business venture. So now what I want you to do is make that list of the things that you're skilled at or the things that you have the ability to acquire a skill in. And this could even look like opening an e-commerce store. Maybe you don't know how to do that yet, but ask yourself, are there resources available for me online to acquire the skills necessary to open an e-commerce store? Again, just an example. So once we have these lists, the lists of the things we're interested in and the things that we are skilled at or have the ability to become skilled at, we want to think about what people are actually going to be willing to pay us for. And this is a big one. I give this example on TikTok often, and I think it's funny, and I think it really accentuates the point, but I love to eat pizza. It's something that I'm really interested in. I could go on about all the different types of pizza and the ways it can be cooked and the ways that I love it. And I think I'm pretty good at it. In terms of skill, I could eat a full large pizza to myself, which is a pretty impressive skill for someone my size, I think. But at the end of the day, probably unless I work at the Delicio test kitchen, no one's gonna pay me to eat pizza, even though I really like it and I'm really good at it. So the important piece here is to really think about, are the things we're interested in and the things that we're skilled at compatible with the things that people are willing to pay for and that the market is maybe demanding or in need of. So what I often encourage people to do when this question comes up is to literally sit down and write a list of all of the things they're interested in, all of the things they're skilled at, and then all of the things people are willing to pay money for. Maybe put check marks next to the ones that tick off that box, and then that will help you to narrow down which ideas are worth pursuing. And if this process seems totally overwhelming, this is something we are going to be exploring in depth inside my Business Builder course. And so Business Builders is a course that I'm going to be launching in November 2022, which will help teach you how to take the ideas that you have and turn them into the business of your dreams. I have been working on the content of this course for months now, and I am so excited for it finally to come to fruition. So no pressure at all, but if you are interested in just learning more about Business Builders, you can jump on the waitlist. I have it linked down below in the description of this video. But in other news, now that we have explored our different business ideas, let's go ahead and talk about where we can take them from here. Okay, so the next thing we need to talk about is market research, because this is the least exciting and therefore most often skipped part of starting a business, mostly because our ego thinks that we know everything and that our ideas are all great ideas and that we don't need to do research to determine whether or not our idea is a good one. So let's not listen to our ego and let's go ahead and do our market research. Because without this step, it is very likely that you will waste a lot of time or a lot of money or a lot of both pursuing an idea that either isn't viable or isn't wanted by the market. So in order to do this at a very basic level, I want you to take a look at your target audience and your competition. You're going to start by identifying and engaging with your target audience. And if you need help sort of getting the ball rolling with how to figure out who your target audience or ideal client is, you should definitely check out this video that I released last week, which goes over this concept in depth. Essentially, you want to be thinking about who is going to benefit from your product or from your service. Who are they? What do they enjoy? What problems do they face? And what solution are you offering through your product or service? Once you've figured out who that is, you need to get out there and actually engage with them. Find those people and ask them questions. The best way to know whether or not there is a market for the thing that you're selling, rather than just guess whether or not there's a market, is to go to the market and find out whether or not the offer that you have is desirable to the people you intend to sell it to. This could look like actually talking to people face to face. You could create a survey. You could scour through Facebook groups or Reddit forums. Find your people where they are, meet them where they're at, and ask them whether or not there's interest in the thing that you're selling. And you don't have to approach this from a sales perspective. Like, you don't have to say, hey, my name's so-and-so, I'm selling product X, Y, and Z. You can literally just say, wouldn't it be great if I could solve problem XYZ for you? Yes or no? Let me know your thoughts. But just trust me when I say that pursuing this step is going to save you so much time and so much money in the long run. And so once we've figured out whether or not the idea that we want to pursue is a viable one, we can go ahead and start to look at the competition. And I think a lot of the times when we hear the word competition, our initial reaction is to think like, oh my God, I have to be the first person to have done this thing, otherwise I'm not going to be successful. And while in some industries, like perhaps tech, where you're looking to innovate and be the first to market with a new product, This really just isn't true, because competition instead is really just validating that the idea that you have is viable in the market, people want what you're selling, and that there are people out there willing to spend money on this thing. And further to this, knowing that there's competition in your industry is going to give you some ideas on what is kind of working and what it looks like in practice, because we can have an idea in our head, but have no idea how it's going to play out in the actual market. So again, we always want to be thinking about competition as a positive thing in our business, especially when it comes to identifying our weaknesses, because we can also see what's not working and then make those adjustments in our own pursuits to make sure that we aren't wasting that time, we aren't wasting that money pursuing something that just isn't viable. Competition is the thing that allows us to make adjustments in order to set our offer apart from what the competition is doing. And so I encourage you to look at the competition, see what they're doing, see where their blind spots are, and figure out how you can fill in those blanks with your product or service. And you will also want to make note of your competition's pricing in this phase, because that's going to give you an idea of where your offer can fall into the market space. And I actually did this step with an offer that I was working on recently. I had priced it significantly under market value unknowingly. Then I did a little bit of research, increased my prices, did a little bit more research, and saw that there are still people that sell at a much higher price point than I do, but I was comfortable where I had readjusted to. But it really just allowed me to give an idea of where I fall in the marketplace. And so when it comes to pricing specifically, I really encourage you to think about, what your overhead costs are, what your time is worth. You want to make sure that you are charging a price that is fair to you as an individual, and that you aren't discounting your own value out of fear that people aren't going to want to pay it. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're still fitting into what is the norm within the market. Honestly, pricing is a lot more complicated than just those 4 indicators. So if that's something you want to learn about, I could do a full length video for you. Just let me know in the comments if that's of interest to you. The next thing I want to encourage you to do is to work through, at minimum, a 1-page business plan. All you want to do is start to map out what you sell, who you sell it to, where you're going to sell it, how you plan on collecting payment, who your competition is and what your competitive edge over them is, how much money you need to get things started, and where you plan on marketing your product. I know this probably sounds like a lot of information, a lot of things to remember. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, just know that I have a worksheet for this available to you for free. It's linked in the description of this episode. So go ahead and check it out if that would be helpful. Now, just keep in mind that this is a very basic Cliff Notes version of an actual business plan. And the idea of it is really just to help you get started if you are beginning from zero and have no idea what exactly it is when it comes to starting a business. This is going to help you assess some of those initial considerations that need to be made in the process of beginning as an entrepreneur. And once you've gone ahead and mapped out these components, it's going to be a lot easier for you to transition into the 6 steps that I mentioned in this video right here, which I will also link in the description of this video if you're interested in checking it out. I'll also link it in the card at the end of this video just to make it as easy as possible to find. Once you've taken the time to figure out your business idea, do your market research, and hash out the infancy of that business plan, you are well on your way from taking your business idea from just a dream to having an actual plan. And again, if you want me to help you hold your hand through the process of starting your very own business, I would seriously consider jumping on the waitlist for my Business Builder course, which is launching in November. In the meantime, if you have any questions at all about starting or growing your own small business, you can leave those right here in the comments below. You can also find me over on TikTok and Instagram, where I post daily small business related tips. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and remember that I put out new videos every Friday at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern. I'm going to leave you on the next slide with my step-by-step how to start a business in Canada, and I will see you in the next video.